I, Vigo, the scourge of Carpathia.
No, you've told me this. This scourge.
The sorrow of Moldavia.
Sorrows, I've heard all of this, yes.
Command you.
Command me, Lord.
All right, suck in the guts, guys. We're the Ghostbusters.
Hey there, Enthusiacs. Welcome back to Hero Talk. As a sequel to our last episode, we are now discussing Ghostbusters 2. Joining me once again is the Dark Princess and the Baron Fang, Jeff and Jen, not respectively. Guys, how you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
All right, so Ghostbusters 2. I'm just going to put all my cards here on the table. I hate this movie. I hate everything about this movie. I don't like this movie even exists. If I had, like, my one chance to go back in time and undo a wrong, Hitler stays, Napoleon, he can still do his thing. I'm going to take care of this movie.
Breaking my heart here.
Now, bear in mind, I'm presuming that when I do erase this movie from existence, all the bad stuff that has happened since 1989 will probably not happen.
Well, then it might be worth it.
Yeah, I think
in that case,
we should
all
at
the
least
flow-on
try.
effects. All the flow-on effects, yeah.
So, all right, Jen, why don't you go ahead and admit your deep, dark secret?
That I absolutely adore this movie.
Yes.
That I love it as much as the first one.
Right. And
That I think it's hilarious.
I don't know
keep
how many
going
other
if
ways
you
to
want.
tell you that you're wrong, you don't, and it's not.
No, it's so good.
It's in fact not. Jeff, where do you stand on the great
Look,
Ghostbusters 2 spectrum?
I'm pretty ambivalent about it. You know, it's not a movie that I like watch over and over again. Unlike the first one, it's certainly nowhere near as quotable. It's a subpar return. And you know, I wish it was better, but I don't hate it. There's some things that I do like about it, and some performances in there that are pretty good. But I don't go back to Ghostbusters 2. You know, we did for the purposes of of this podcast, obviously, but I've never previously actually sat down and made a point to watch it. Yeah, so it was interesting to actually to look at it with a critical eye rather than just like, oh, I don't like it as much as the first one, to actually look into more detail into why it wasn't as good as the first one. But look, it was
it's
an
disheartening.
exercise.
It's like looking into a black hole almost. I watched it as soon as we finished recording Ghostbusters 1, the Hero Talk. That night I popped this thing into Netflix and I watched it.
Oh,
And
that's quite a chaser.
yeah, like, talk about coming off the high of how awesome Ghostbusters was. I watched this, and man, I hate it even more now than I did when I first saw it in the theaters. I am the only member of the Hero Talk panel tonight to have seen both movies in their original theatrical release.
Wow.
There are some good lines, though.
Okay,
It might not
Jen,
be quite
name
as quotable, but
five.
there are.
Name 5.
Well,
Okay, lines that make me laugh?
Sure.
Okay. Suck in the guts, guys, for the Ghostbusters.
Really?
Makes me laugh every single time. Yes, it's so funny.
Okay. Is that my standard from which all the rest of these quotes are going to fall?
Okay, I like this other one. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Wonder what? Whether she's naked under that toga. She is French, you know that.
Wow.
Okay, how about this?
Oh, no.
I'd like to run some gynecological... I can't say that word. Help me out.
I'm pretty sure we got to
Gynecological?
bleep it out anyway.
Yeah, this is a family podcast.
That's on the mother. Who wouldn't? These are funny lines. And then, okay, this is a good one. When the Titanic shows up and Cheech goes, well, better late than never. It's funny.
That one
Like,
actually
okay,
was
I know
funny,
he-
but that's like
it's-
90% Cheech and 10%
Yeah.
script.
Yeah,
It
I
is,
have
but
to
it's
admit,
still
I only
funny
remember
regardless.
that line because of him and the look on his
Yeah.
face and the delivery.
Exactly.
Like he's
But
perfectly
that's
fine
in
with
the
the Ghost Titanic showing up. He's like, oh, all
I
right.
hope you're going to remember the best one, though, Jen.
But that's funny. I mean, whether it's just solely about the script, it's about the delivery. That's what makes a movie.
Okay,
So, okay. So give me that one at least.
I will give you. So out of the 4 you've said so far, you've got 1.
Well, then I just failed, don't I?
Well, I mean, are you gonna say the 5th, or do I have to remind you?
Well, I have a list of the quotes that I put down that I thought were funny, but I don't know what's yours.
Well, the highlight for me was did you have any toys as a kid? I had a Slinky, but I straight I
Oh my
straightened
god. Yeah, I just missed it. I had to have that here. We had part of it, like, but I straightened it.
I straightened
I
it.
love
Yeah.
that line.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth noting that when it came time to remember memorable lines from this movie, you had to write them down.
Yeah.
Whereas
No,
when it
is
comes
a bit
time to
dumber.
remember memorable lines from Ghostbusters 1, everybody
I-
knows them already.
No, hang on. I am not good on the spot. I need my stuff in front of me.
Well, I should
Or I'll
probably
forget.
also point out that it is impossible to write down every memorable line from Ghostbusters 1 because it's also known as the script from Ghostbusters 1.
Yeah. You'd be there
I'll
all
agree
day.
with that. I'm not going to argue.
All right, so let's just talk about the cast for a second. They got basically everybody back, including, I didn't think they got Lenny back as the mayor, but he was. I got confused. I thought Brian Doyle Murphy played the mayor, but he didn't. He played the psychiatrist, or I don't know if he was a psychologist. I actually don't know the difference between those two things.
I don't
But
know.
one of those in a ridiculously dumb scene that we'll probably talk about later. And then he played the mayor in the video game. That was a fact. And in fact, I should probably state off the bat now. Not only we're going to spoil this movie, and I don't usually say those anymore because obviously if it's on Hero Talk, we're going to spoil the movie we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we're also going to spoil the first movie because it's been 30 years. All right, we're going to spoil the first movie.
Yeah.
We're also going to spoil the 2009 video game because the 2009 video game actually calls back to this movie quite a bit.
Huh.
So we're going to we're going to keep that. The video game actually takes this movie and sends it back to Ghostbusters 1 and ties them all together. So this wasn't like some completely independent activity going on. From Ghostbusters 1, it kind of ties it all into the same thing. Not that saves this movie, but but it at least does draw a line between Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, and the Ghostbusters video game, which for all intents and purposes is Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah. Well, look, it's as close as we're ever going to get to something that.
I mean,
it's like
let's be
Ghostbusters
honest.
3.
It's completely physically impossible to get all 4 Ghostbusters back for a movie at this point.
Yeah.
Very sadly enough.
Yeah.
And if Ernie Hudson has degraded as much for Ghostbusters 3 as he did between 1 and 2, I don't know if we want him back.
No.
I mean, that wasn't just me,
Aw.
right? Ernie Hudson,
No.
he looked terrible.
He looked awful, and it's weird because like he's been in plenty of stuff since then that I've liked him in, like Oz, for example. He was great. He was great in that. He didn't look ill or shiny or whatever whatever was going on with him.
He looked like he had the stomach flu the whole movie.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, and he just didn't seem right. And not just older, like they were all older, but he just didn't seem well.
Yeah.
But yeah, impressive that they got everybody back, and of course they replaced the one government asshole with a new government asshole who fills that role quite well.
Lenny's just really bad at choosing aides. I think this is what it comes down to.
Pretty much, yeah.
Were you supposed to lie to me and kiss my butt? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I should point out that when I first saw this movie in theaters, I was 8, and I thought that line was funny. As an adult, that line's not funny anymore.
I think it's funny. I laughed, and Mr. Fang here can tell you I laughed because he heard me.
She did, yeah. We were watching it together, and she remembered
I
it quite
teeheed.
well.
You teeheed. That's a little disappointed in the both of you, quite frankly.
Oh.
So I mean, it felt like, well, it's good to have everybody back. Like Rick Moranis, he had nothing to do in this movie outside of just be in the courtroom scene, and he's only in the courtroom scene because they needed something for him to do.
Yeah.
He's a worthless character to the entire plot development, and every scene he's in just feels like fluff.
Yeah, it's the great thing about his character in the first movie is not only is he really effective comedy relief, but he's actually also an integral part of the story. He isn't just stuck in there like, haha, remember this zany guy?
Yeah.
You're right. Like, outside of helping in that courtroom scene, and I actually, you know what? If that had been his cameo in the movie, actually that would have been perfect.
Yeah, if that was the only thing
ridiculous
he did,
choice.
he was just in that scene and that was it, I could have been like, yeah, you know what? You brought him back for that one scene. It was pretty funny. But the fact that he was in the rest of the movie, usually just playing off a Slimer.
Yeah.
And we already know I like Slimer. I can't say I like Slimer. That's not true. I don't like that Slimer became this giant popular entity, and this movie came out in the middle of the Slimer takeover when he's got top billing and most stuff, and that's the only reason why Slimer's even in this movie.
Yeah. He went from being a character who was really funny to just the closest thing I can think of it is how they really really badly used C-3PO in the prequels. You know what I mean? Like in the first movie, he was he wasn't like laugh out loud funny all the time, but there was a lot of comic relief there, and then in particularly in Attack of the Clones, you just turned into a court jester effectively. And Lewis's character feels a little bit inserted just for the.
Yeah, it was just for the yucks, and I get
For
it
the yucks, yeah.
he's a nerd, and it's like it's not the same if he doesn't actually have something to do.
Yeah.
And it just felt like he didn't have something to do. Speaking of nothing to do, Winston Zeddemore, we get like some inside look at all the Ghostbusters lives as far as what they've been doing for the last 5 years, except Winston.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? It would have been funny if they could have come up with something else for him as well. I'm sure, but no, they just apparently all he does is the parties.
All he does
with Ray.
Listen, I don't want to throw around the word racist. I'm just saying the white Ghostbusters all got some stories about what they'd been up to with their time, and the black Ghostbuster did not.
Yeah. I as far as the other performances in the film, like Egon was Egon, Venkman was Venkman, even though Bill Murray definitely didn't have as much enthusiasm this time around. And
you picked up on that.
Yeah,
it felt like he didn't want to be there. Like,
yeah,
I've crushing my childhood.
Oh, sorry, but like I heard a lot of stories that he's like he was the driving force against Ghostbusters 3. Like we can almost thank him for why it's never been made. Yeah. And you can almost see why. Because he's like, listen, we shouldn't have even made a second one.
Yeah. Both the character of Ray and the performance are pretty much identical, as is the Egon performance. And Sigourney Weaver is just pitch perfect again as Dana. Mm-hmm. I actually think that whole storyline about them and what happened to their relationship and bringing the kid into it was kind of interesting.
No, you know what? I have some issues with the kid, and this isn't just because I dislike this movie in general, but I felt like this movie went to the child in peril too many times for my liking. It's too many times the source of drama was, is the baby going to be okay? Yeah. And, while it's maybe not something I picked up with at the time, having a baby now, I don't really appreciate it when you abuse that emotional tug. Like,
just keep beating on that.
You just keep beating on that. Like, hey, listen, I don't think you earned it the first time, and you certainly haven't earned it the next 4 times you've used it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it got a little old. And not the kid. By the way, another case of twins. By the way, I just was looking over the cast list, and there's 2 people next to it, and I thought there was a typo, and then I realized those are actually twins.
Twins. That's how you get around U.S. child labor laws.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Annie Potts was great.
I love her.
It just.
She didn't have any lines though. Unfortunately,
she really. I don't think she was used as well. Like she wasn't as fun, and then she kind of got a little 80s punk,
Oh yeah, the hair, and the
hair and the clothes
and
stuff. It just seemed like I guess it's been 5 years.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm a little surprised she didn't have another job by now, but
yeah.
She would immediately go right back working for them. She didn't really like it in the first place.
Yeah. Ivan Reitman returned as the voice of Slimer, by the way.
Ivan Reitman did return as the voice of Slimer. Wow. That's a good thing, too, for Slimer's very integral part of this movie. With no real explanation as to how he got out and why he's floating around.
No.
He's Slimer.
Yeah, because he's Slimer. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Jen, I feel like Jeff and I have kind of done the rotisserie beatdown of this movie so far. In the interest of fairness, so people don't think that I'm being a bully, tell me, what in your flawed opinion did you actually find appealing about the movie?
Okay, again, I do think that it's funny. It might not be as funny as the first one, but if you can kind of look at it objectively, it is a very funny movie. And honestly, another thing I actually did want to bring up that I was thinking about after our last Hero Talk, you asked me the first time I saw the first one, and I couldn't even remember. And I think that a lot of that has to do with, I'm pretty sure I watched the second one way more.
No.
Like, I think I actually maybe even watched the second one first.
No.
Well, given what age you would have been, it's not that hard to do.
And, it would have just come out, I don't even remember how I saw it in the first place, but it really stuck with me. I really liked it as a kid, and I'm pretty sure that was just my introduction. Oh. And I also remember, now I think I'm crushing him. We also mentioned, like, I don't remember what it was. You said some scene in the first one scared you.
Is the librarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the second one, that was the big scene that freaked me out when they were down in the tunnel, and that ghost train comes, and then there's all those heads.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That scared the crap out of me when I was little. I'm pretty sure I ran out of the living room at one point.
I was in a theater.
But I just think that there's more of an attachment there because I grew up on it more than you guys did.
Maybe.
Well, it's a good explanation, at least.
I guess. Yeah, it's a good reason, but still no excuse.
It's good though. It's funny. It's like endearing. It's like old friends coming back. I love that they come back. I love that they come together. It's just, I don't know. I don't know why. I never thought that anybody hated Ghostbusters 2.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what to say to you guys. It's kind of sad though.
Yeah. It is a little sad. I suppose. All right. Sorry, I'm just can't believe that. This was your introduction. That's wrong. That feels like this is what I would change if I could go back in time. Because then your introduction would have been the first Ghostbusters movie, and you wouldn't have been broken.
But it's just so fun. Like, I love when they get the Statue of Liberty moving.
Oh, that felt so forced. Like, it's almost like they sat there and said to themselves, we need something giant to walk through the streets of New York in the third act. Yeah. They're like, well, doesn't really fit with the plot so far to have the bad guy be big. And like, well, let's make a good guy real big. And they came up with this idea just to try to hit the same upbeats that there were in the other movie. I mean, it didn't hit the same beats, like almost like they had the same first draft of the script. Like they took Ghostbusters 1 and they said, no, let's start changing things here and there.
Yeah, it is a bit odd. I mean, who's listed as the writer here? I guess it was just it was Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd again. So right. I was looking to see if there was another name I could blame, but
no,
unfortunately.
Yeah. See, to me, that's all the more reason to say it's just another good movie. It's the same guys who are geniuses.
Yeah, geniuses can screw stuff up every now and then.
They can, but even when a genius screws up a bit, that's way better than the vast majority of other stuff done.
Well, it's not really a great excuse to say like this rises to the top of the turd pile.
No, but see, I don't see it that way. Right. Like, I'm just saying, even if you think it's not up to their par, it's like you still got to look at who was making it, and I can't look at their work and say that it's crap.
I certainly can. That is well within my rights. All right, so we can harp back and forth about why this movie is bad and why people who like it are wrong all day. But we should probably actually discuss the movie. Now, I'm going to ask you if you noticed, Pete Venkman's TV show, the running time on that sucker is about 4.5 minutes. That seems short to anybody else?
Yeah.
And
that whole segment.
Yeah, and then the mayor's just walking through the studio at the time, like the public access. Didn't it seem? I mean, he's the mayor of New York City. Wouldn't he be on one of the more national stations? Maybe not on the set of the Psychic show.
Yeah, you'd think it was a bit contrived.
It was a big studio building, and he was there for some other program.
They try to intone that the show is very low rent, though. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like it's not like they show that it's a big time show and he'd be in the big studio. Like I would imagine that the mayor would be like on the 30th floor at the major studios, and like Peter's show was somewhere like on floor 3.
I think it's just one of those things that it's a movie and they had to have him there, and that's it.
Yeah. It's something that's never bothered me until I actually tried to watch this with a critical eye.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no,
wait a minute.
That's kind of dumb. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan. And also, there was a scene later on where some big security guard like sees him. And he's like, "Hey, aren't you from that Psychic show?" And he's like, "Oh, I love that show." Like, yeah, I'm also one of those guys who saved New York from the giant walking marshmallow man. I don't know if you recognize me from that. You remember when a giant marshmallow destroyed a block of this city, and I helped kill it? You don't remember that in the newspapers? The giant marshmallow? It covered half of Park West? Yeah. No? Not ringing a bell? Yeah, there was. I think that plot point kind of made a lot of things a little bit ridiculous about the Ghostbusters, in that, you have a judge who's like, I don't believe in ghosts. Like, really? Because everyone saw the Marshmallow Man. literally everybody. Like in this Ghostbusters world, you can't get away with the "I don't believe in ghosts" argument anymore because the Marshmallow Man happened.
Yeah, that I didn't like. The one thing I thought that was a very clever way of reconciling that world and the real world was that they were all sued after it happened. That I was like, that's actually right.
That actually seems about right. Yeah, they were even a little bit ahead of their time there.
Yeah,
I think
a
at
really
the time,
good idea.
like even around then, I'm like, why would they be sued? They're heroes. And then now I watch them like, oh, they'd be sued 3 ways from Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great way to explain, why they would have been made insolvent and all moved onto their separate ways because they can't be Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, I have no problem with that point. It makes sense. You know what? What kind of bothers me? Let's talk about this courtroom scene because it's supposed to be our equivalent to the hotel scene.
Yeah.
So they're in court, and it's a funny scene in that, like, you got Lewis who's trying to be the attorney and he does tax law, but they hired him anyway, probably because he wouldn't charge them.
Yeah.
So they probably just went the cheap route.
Yeah.
And I even thought it was kind of funny where like he's being fed lines by Peter.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't actually know. I do think he screwed up a lot of legal terms that even Lewis would probably know. But what really irks me about this scene, and I couldn't get around it, is they start this scene where the 3 of them are being charged, and Winston is there. It's established he's there. He's talking to him. So he's there, and he's in the courtroom. Then the ghosts pop out. Everybody clears except for the 3 main Ghostbusters, Lewis and the judge.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you trying to tell me that Winston ran away with everybody else? The Ghostbuster, Winston Zedmore, didn't think to himself, we got to do something about this?
Yeah. It's I looked at that as well and thought, and I still can't come up with an explanation as to why they would not have him in that scene. I mean, other than to make a perfect like recreation.
Yeah. Other than because you needed
scene?
to have the 3 guys and then Winston join later, just like in the first movie.
Yeah. I mean, why if that was how they wanted to do it, why not just have Winston gone for the first part of the movie and then turn up dramatically, and have a like a dramatic entrance at some point.
Right. Yeah. Why establish him? Why even establish him at the courtroom just to forget that he's there for the other guys?
Yeah. Or have him save the day or something, or help.
The time that he gets to save the day is when they're locked in that room and all those pictures catch on fire, and then he like breaks down the door, and then epic music plays.
Yeah.
I think the courtroom scene would have been. I mean, bear in mind, what I said from the first movie still holds true. Winston is my favorite Ghostbuster, so it bothers me when he's not involved in the ghostbusting when he was present at the scene and established there.
And he wouldn't have ran away like a little baby.
And he would not have run away.
No.
I could understand if they show like, and they established he was running crowd control, like everybody calm down, everybody single file, come on. Then I could at least be like, listen, he didn't freak out, he kept his wits about him, he was clearing people out of the courtroom. But they didn't establish that. They established he was there, and then everybody ran away screaming.
Yeah.
Except for, Lewis stayed in the courtroom.
Yeah. Just so we get 3 more funny lines out of him.
Yeah. Just so they could set the trap, and I don't know, Jen, explain to me, why is Do Ray Egon funny?
You know what? That's actually on my list of the quotes that made me laugh the most, and I'll explain why. It's the way he delivers it. It's solely about him. It's not the line. The line itself, if anyone else read it, I'd be like, that is awful. It's just because I love him so much, and the way he delivers it, and the way he smiles when he says it, that's what cracks me up. That's the only reason it's funny, is because of him.
Okay. So
it's one of those unhinged Egon moments that you see so rarely,
where like he thinks he's cool.
Well, in the first movie where he's firing the proton pack and he's just going and going and going, and they're like, "Whoa, easy, Tex," and he's like clearly like lost it,
See, again, even when we talk about the second movie, it always goes back to how good the first movie is. All right, so River of Slime. Which was later retconned to be the River of Slime was actually not created by Vigo and not created by the Hate of New York, but actually was pumped under the city of New York by the Gozer worshippers did.
Oh, is this from the video game?
That's from the video game, yeah. They produced the River of Slime.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a better explanation.
Yeah. Then it just was there, yeah. So they did it specifically to try to, they wanted to try to bring about this great apocalypse of evil thing because they thought that would bring about the return of Gozer.
increase the psychometric potential or some such
Right.
explanation.
And so I guess, and I don't remember exactly from the video game. It's been a couple years, but I think Vigo coming to life was a happy coincidence in terms of what was going on. Like Vigo ended up coming to life because he had haunted the painting, and the slime allowed him to manipulate and to try to become alive.
Right.
But I think Vigo had nothing to do with the River of Slime.
Okay. Well, I would have liked that better, to be honest, to tie it into the first movie as well, too.
Yeah.
Given that they'd established that there were Gozer worshippers and causing trouble in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't like Vigo. I thought, if I had to choose between Vigo and Gozer, I'd rather have Gozer.
Gozer's a lot more subtle.
Gozer's a lot more subtle. I mean, Vigo
until the end
was a little over the top, and Janosch was kind of weird, and I don't know if I quite bought the idea of I just need a child. It's like, it seems a little conveniently contrived.
Well,
yeah.
he said he needed to take a human form, and I guess it was like, well, why not start as a baby so he can have more time on Earth?
Was he just going to be like relatively benign for 17 years until he came of age, though? Like,
yeah.
That's what I was
wanted to go to high school.
Didn't it seem like he would want an adult? Like, hey, Janosch, as long as you're here.
Would you want to look like Janosch?
If he'd gotten his way, presumably the mold would have gone away, and Dana would have been forced to fall in love with Janosch, and the two of them would have walked out of the museum with the kid like nothing happened, raised him, and then, like little Damien, he would have grown up to be like eventually the overlord of the earth. But that's a long time to wait for the apocalypse, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
seems like there's more efficient ways you could bring it about.
I would think, but especially when like even Peter's guest was all like, oh, it's going to end at the end of the it's going to end on New Year's Eve and the world is going to end, and it's like, well, the world wasn't really going to end then. It was a couple of wheels were going to be set in motion, but still, you're one bad car accident away from preventing the end of the world at that stage.
Yeah. Another thing about New Year's Eve, I just thought I'd mention quickly. I happened to be looking at the poster, and I didn't see it in the theaters, and I wasn't old enough to care about the marketing at the time. But this movie came out in June.
Yes,
this was a summer blockbuster.
It was a summer movie. Yes.
What? Okay. I mean, I might be an idiot, but like more often than not, when they set a movie at the holiday period, like a Home Alone,
you release it in the holiday
period. or Gremlins, for example, you release it in the lead up to the holiday period. Why wouldn't they have done that?
Even as a kid, it felt a little out of place seeing the Ghostbusters running around in their blue coveralls, which I didn't like, with their Santa hats on.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that seemed to arbitrarily change. I don't like that they decided to make the little ghost and their symbol like give the peace sign so that he could be Ghostbusters 2. Like, there was no real reason for that other than so they could use the Ghostbusters 2 symbol.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, in terms of branding, you want to go with the brand that everybody recognizes.
Yeah.
But I can forgive blue jumpsuits. Whatever. I think if they were going to wear blue jumpsuits, though, they should have just dived full on in and said, all right, we're in blue jumpsuits for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Not for a couple of scenes in the montage.
But they didn't. Yeah. Although the poster, they're wearing the blue jumpsuits, which is odd. But yeah, I always thought that was weird. It's not like I've never seen a movie released at a time where it isn't set. It's just like that seems to be the done thing these days for holiday movies is to have them set in the holidays. Maybe they thought it would do better. I mean, the original Ghostbusters, I assume, was a summer blockbuster. Maybe that's why. But then why use a New Year's Eve MacGuffin if, I mean, for any other excuse but to have a Auld Lang Syne chorus? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's why they changed. Well, I don't know that they changed it, but maybe that's why they chose New Year's Eve.
Well, maybe that was the story, and then, I mean, I'm sure the higher up decided when it was going to be released.
Yeah.
Maybe they wrote that expecting it to be released around the holidays. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Vigo wouldn't have known it was New Year's Eve because he's on the Gregorian calendar based on when he was alive.
So, it was just a coincidence, really.
So, like, his calendar would have been way off.
He just chose a random day. He had no idea there was going to be all these people singing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it because that really ended up kind of biting him in the butt at the end.
Yeah. He should have chose the last day of the tax season to get the maximum amount of grumbling.
If he had shown up like April 15th or like Black Friday.
Man, Black Friday.
He shows up Black Friday, man. He doesn't even need to get a baby at that point. He can just become real again.
Yeah. Well, one Walmart
Yeah.
door getting smashed down at the stroke of midnight.
Yeah.
Boom. Apocalypse.
We went to a real dark place here.
Seriously.
Well, it just really struck me as odd
Yeah.
why they would set that differently
Yeah.
than the release date. But,
Now,
um,
I guess maybe explain this to me, but if Vigo, it seems like he can walk out of that painting and interact with the world around him, why did he need the baby?
I still don't know. I mean, and I say that buying the premise of the gatekeeper and the keymaster from the first film, like
Mhm.
even though it was a little bit contrived, I still didn't question it. And two human hosts and all
Yeah.
that jazz. But yeah, I honestly think it was just a way to tug on the heartstrings. Really, it was just a cheap way to get to try and build.
Put the baby in peril.
Yeah, a sympathetic reaction from the audience.
They didn't earn it.
Which is a weird choice because I mean, wasn't the stakes were pretty high in the first film?
Yeah, it was.
Like they didn't need to be trumped up by anything. Like
I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of the whole final scene or Vigo as a villain. It just like when there's no real connection there driving the story, it just felt a little off.
Yeah. Like even the confrontation, which is one of the parts of the movie I like more than most. He still didn't. I don't know. I didn't feel as much tension as you did during the Gozer confrontation.
Right. Well, because when Gozer comes out, like you're thinking, and especially when they try to fry her, nothing happens. Like, how are they going to get through this?
Yeah.
But by this time, you imagined by now that they were just going to like blow the thing with good slime, and everything would turn out all right.
Yeah. The good slime.
Yeah. So, what'd you think of the good slime?
The positively charged slime?
Yeah, I'm just going to call it the good slime because that's what I've grown up calling it. So.
Well, look, any feelings I might have had about it were kind of ruined by the whole fact that I didn't like the Statue of Liberty contrivance. So, I mean, it was just...
Keep kicking, Levy.
I just
liked
didn't...
it.
Yeah.
You like the good slime concept or the Statue of Liberty contrivance?
Both.
See, it's the Statue of Liberty thing was something which, as an 8-year-old, I thought was awesome. But then, as an adult, I'm like, oh, come on.
See, we've finally figured it out. You grew up. I so didn't, and that's why I still love it. Because deep down, I'm still an 8-year-old.
Yeah. I am not. But wow.
You have a child. You're an adult.
Yeah, I can't really afford to be an 8-year-old anymore. But I mean, I don't know. It was walking around. What was the song they played to make it walk?
Higher and higher.
Higher and higher.
Yeah.
Not a terrible song.
Oh,
so there you go.
Good choice.
I have good things to say about this movie.
It's the best song in the. It's the best song in the movie.
Best song in the movie.
It's better than the Bobby Brown trash.
Oh, that Bobby Brown. Let me.
Ugh.
Or you know what? And I'm very surprised about this is that the remix of the Ghostbusters theme by Run DMC.
Yeah.
I never in my life thought I would ever say that I think the Ray Parker Jr. version's better. But that's. Yeah. I didn't like. I mean, they were using the Nintendo controller, the NES Advantage.
Oh yeah, that yeah.
How would they have rigged? That's just so.
I mean, I already didn't like the scene to begin with, but that was just like.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So in the Ghostbusters 2 video game, this was easily the most convoluted and hardest level. Also, was trying to ride the stupid Statue of Liberty to the museum.
Yeah. How did you lose that section? Stepping on too many.
No, well, it's like you had to like crawl through the water and then get up and then like there's stuff flying everywhere, like stuff that's not actually in the movie, but like ghost things flying around and like I think you have to point the torch and try to shoot from the torch at them. But
okay.
I mean, Jen, you played that game.
Think so.
Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, it's been obviously a long ass time, but I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, not a fan. No. I played that game embarrassingly much.
Yeah, I never had the pleasure.
No. I mean, listen, that
was one of my first big gaming experiences, is playing that game obsessively.
Well, I mean, one of my first big gaming experiences was playing Ghostbusters, the original game, on the Commodore 64, because I'm old.
800 XL here, so yeah.
So, I mean, I did play that game quite a bit, even though I thought the controls were terrible, and it was really funky, like A shot and B jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, you talk
He's
about
very
blowing your mind
funky.
as a young kid.
Yeah, I think I heard about that in an Angry Video Game Nerd review. And for him, that's the ultimate sacrilege with a game is when A isn't jump.
Yeah,
So-
that's... Listen, that's convention. You can't go against that right now. A is jump. A will forever be jump.
Yep.
All right. So, I don't know. Jen, did you like Vigo? Did you think he was a fun villain, or was
Yes.
just there?
No, I really did like him. I felt like, I mean, again, when I was little, he like kind of really freaked me out.
Mhm.
And the whole aspect of Janosch was disturbing as hell. I mean, not now when I'm, a grown woman, but when I was little, that scene where he's in the hallway and his eyes are glowing also scared the crap out of me.
I saw this movie probably 4 or 5 times before this in pieces, and I did not realize until this time that the old woman ghost carriage thing was Janosch. I honestly had no
That's
idea.
disturbing.
Yeah. Again, this was just another scene where it was baby in peril, so I kind of thought they didn't earn it.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh no, the baby's on the ledge. Is the baby going to fall? And listen, you haven't earned that.
Yeah,
This is,
baby was-
at that point in time, this is now like the 3rd or 4th time you've tried to put the baby in peril to create dramatic tension. Like, you lost the right now. The baby gets to be safe for the rest of the movie.
The baby does remind me of one thing that I do think this movie did well, which was in keeping from the first movie, is that there were a lot of really well done practical special effects in it. The the ghost carriage,
Yeah.
the rolling around the streets of New York, even the silly sort of toaster scene, just and the chairs flipping out on their own in the courtroom, like a lot of that stuff's really well done, at least on par or better with what was in the first. It would, I mean, granted, in 1989, they would they have had slightly better. What was it that we were complaining about in the first one, Greg?
We were complaining about the dogs
running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there was any. I'm trying to think. Was there something like that where there was an?
Well, yeah,
an
like the two brother guys from the courtroom. They were all CG effect or whatever.
And that was pretty good. For the time.
I had no issue with it visually.
Yeah.
In fact, my only issue with that scene in general is just that Winston disappeared. In terms of Ghostbusters busting ghosts, it did everything it needed to do.
Yeah, but as far as special effects are concerned, I mean, for the time, impressive, and I think they stepped certain things up from the first film as well, and they probably, I mean, it was $7 or $8 million more than the first film, so I don't know whether that's reflected in Bill Murray's extra paycheck to get him to do it, or whether or not it was for the special effects. But
I mean, the one effect where I look at today, and especially when I just saw it, and I thought like that's still a little cheesy, is when the Statue of Liberty is walking through New York, like it just that seemed a little off, and I don't know how they filmed it. I don't know if it was miniatures and then they overlaid it. I don't know if that was all like some kind of claymation or if that was all digital, but it didn't look real to me.
It looked way worse than the Stay Puft.
Yeah.
Stay Puft looked real. You could watch it today, and I'm like, I don't know how they did this unless they actually got a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to walk through the city. That's the only explanation I can think of. Stay Puft looked like he was there.
I'd love to. I mean, Jen's written about the upcoming DVD release, and that's one thing I'd love to see is if they've got like a featurette on Stay Puft. I'd be very curious to see that.
Yeah, I love Mr. Stay Puft. I of all the stuff they really worked and went out of their way to get back in this movie, even though they didn't deserve it, I would have forgiven Stay Puft.
Well, they did it in the cartoon. They let him out to save New York in the cartoon.
Yeah. You guys didn't hear this last time because we had this whole discussion off the air, but in the cartoon they let Stay Puft out of the containment unit all the time. Even though A, he wasn't actually in the containment unit, he blew up, and B, he's not Mr. Stay Puft, he's Gozer the Destructor.
Yeah.
Was he like their guard dog? Just release him when they need backup?
Yeah, it was like whenever they needed like a big something to fight another big ghost, they would just release Stay Puft. And you're like, no, that's not Stay Puft. He's not the big, funny, fun-loving Marshmallow Man. That's Gozer the Destructor, who wants to bring about the end of all life as they know it. And they're just going to let him out because the giant praying mantis ghost is pretty scary too. So but I would have forgiven it. I have it on my Christmas tree every year. I got a Mr. Stay Puft.
Oh,
I want one.
Well, then you should have bought one 2 years ago when Hallmark was selling them. No, actually, Hallmark sells, I think, a Ghostbusters Christmas ornament of some sort every year. Last year might have been Ecto-1. But
Damn it.
they redo them all the time. Don't worry. It's not like they're never going to do Ecto 1 again. Might just have to wait 2 or 3 years.
You heard that, Mr. Fang?
Yeah, I'll
Christmas
take note.
present idea.
Yeah.
I'll take note.
No, Hallmark actually makes some decent Christmas ornaments. You know what they made
Yeah,
last year that I picked up, Jeff?
What's that?
Bobby Orr.
Bobby Orr Christmas
Bobby
ornament.
Orr Christmas
Oh
ornament.
my god, that's awesome.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how they sold elsewhere, but I know like around here, you had to buy them. Like when they came out, you needed to be in the store buying your Bobby Orr because they were sold out long before Christmas time.
Can there be a John Tavares one? And Kyle Poso?
We'll see.
Let's just have hockey talk there.
We will see.
Checking online.
We can talk hockey. This is hero talk. There is no format here. We talk about whatever we want. But yeah, no, they have Christmas ornaments. It's sort of my thing. When I stopped collecting action figures, I was like, how do I scratch that itch? And like, I buy Christmas ornaments now. That's how I scratch that itch. They go in the box, and every Christmas they come out. They hang on the tree, so it's not like they're just sitting around. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, talking about the confrontation with Vigo makes me remember the two things in the movie the joystick, just egregious, but probably the thing that I hate the most is the painting. I mean,
the painting at the end, like
who talked who into that? Like who said that was a good idea?
Like, what sense does that make?
I mean, it doesn't make any in-universe sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense in any other context. It's just, yeah.
No,
I don't
agree.
know.
So, Jen, you love this movie so much. Why was there a painting of them?
Someone got paid to do that.
Yeah.
That painting
Okay,
exists somewhere.
Here's the thing. I'm more on the fence on this one because I completely understand what you guys are saying. It makes no sense. It seems silly. But, and again, he can attest to this because he's watching it with me. I went, aw.
Wow.
It's just,
wow.
I think that the movie is like so close to my heart and I love it so much because I grew up on it that I forgive stuff like that. So, yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. It's silly. It's not
Considering
needed.
that painting is
I don't
from
know
the
why
16th,
it's there.
Considering that painting is from the 16th century and that it's probably insured, how does that? Do they get a payout on that when a psychometric event changes it to a picture of four idiots?
That's a pretty good question. So here's some other things. As we're starting to get towards the end of Hero Talk, and there's still a couple of things I need to bring up and make sure that are properly discussed. When the mayor's aide has the Ghostbusters committed, and the psychiatric doctor, played by Brian Doyle Murphy, doesn't believe them when they talk about the River of Slime. You do understand that just 5 years ago, a giant marshmallow man trampled an entire block of the city of New York. These are literally the experts that are certified as you can get, and stuff like this has in fact happened. So how do you get the, yeah, sure, right, whatever? Like, what do you mean, whatever? You remember the marshmallow? The giant storm? I felt like they don't have that luxury anymore. That plot device is gone. People believe in ghosts now. That's a thing.
Yes. Yes, Gozer. We've investigated those claims. Yeah, like they really
no more Mass Effect reference.
they really shouldn't have fallen back into the let's make it so that people don't believe them again BS, because you're right, the climax of the first film was just simply too big for the audience to look at the second one and go that in this world there could be someone who like is
I'm not even talking about somebody in LA, all right? We're talking about people in the same city where that happened 5 years ago.
Ungrateful yuppie larva.
Oh, that's a different story. Those kids wouldn't have even remembered the Marshmallow Man. Why the Ghostbusters are going to their birthday party, I don't know.
Part of me wonders if they almost wanted to think, like, I feel like they presented it in the way that there was some massive cover-up, and the vast majority of the city didn't even know about what happened in the first one. But obviously they didn't present that as the case.
I could have bought that. I really could have. I could have been like...
if they had somehow...
Yeah, like the mayor's like, listen, this is not getting out there. We are calling, pre-Patriot Act, and we are controlling everything. Yeah.
I don't know.
But they pretend like it did happen, and yet we're also supposed to believe that people like this don't believe them and think that they're crazy.
Yeah,
like
they would be crazy, even though they showed up.
Another way.
Yeah. Here's another thing, and the precursor to this whole thing bothered me. Is they needed to create a scene in which the Ghostbusters could get arrested and be brought to the mayor, because that happened in the first movie, so we have to do that again. But what sense does it make they finally go for the swim in the slime, they come out, they're covered in slime, and they think to themselves, we need to go in person to the place where Peter is having dinner to get him to listen to this story, instead of thinking, we need to get out of these slimed clothes and then call the place where Peter is having dinner and tell him that he needs to come back because we found something big. Like, why go there, still covered in slime, to what presumably had to be a bit of a walk away?
Yeah.
They were too excited and too pumped up. Like, to me, it was such a huge thing that they had discovered. I think it almost would have made it fall flat if they had been like, oh, let's go home and change and get some dinner and then we'll find him.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they should have had dinner. I mean, that's at the very least, like, you know, they want to play like, we got to get out of these clothes because the slime is making us hate each other. By the way, in a fight between Winston and Ray, I don't see how that would even be a fight. Winston would crush him, right?
He would, yeah.
Like, I'm a little upset that they let it go as long as it did in the film without Winston just crushing him. But, all right, whatever. I guess Winston doesn't get any respect in this movie, so I don't see why that would start now.
Poor Winston.
I know, right? I mean, it's not just me. You guys saw that too. Like, Winston did not get the same fair shake as the other three.
Yeah.
There's that T-shirt we were looking at too online where they're all on the front, including Slimer, Stay Puft, and he's on the back of it.
And Winston's on. You know,
that's not cool.
That kind of bothers me a little bit.
Me too. Like, seriously.
Because he's my favorite. He's not the doctor. This is just his job. You know. Although I want to point out again that in the Ghostbusters game they established that Winston does eventually go and get his PhD in paranormal psychology or something along those lines. Yeah,
like they righted it wrong.
Yeah, like they decided he's now Dr. Zedmore.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because he made some comment during the New York Public Library level, like, I spent all my time here when I was getting my PhD. That's what it was. It was a throwaway comment. Which I thought was a little odd because the video game is set 2 years after Ghostbusters 2.
Wow, that's a hard slog getting a PhD in 2 years.
So I think we can safely assume from that Winston is some kind of certified genius level intellect.
Have to be.
I mean, you'd have to be, right? In 2 years? Because he gave no indication he was working on his PhD during this movie. Yeah. Not that we got any indication what he was up to at all during this movie.
No.
Maybe he was getting smart.
Maybe.
You never know.
Yeah, maybe he's been studying this whole... That's where Winston was. He was getting his PhD. Mm-hmm. Sure. Why not? Let's let the video game fix all the wrongs of this movie. All right. So those scenes kind of irked me a little bit. Lewis didn't need to get suited up. Slimer didn't need to be driving a bus. Why was Slimer driving a bus?
Because
I don't know.
And then let Lewis go, okay.
Yeah, okay. Like, he gets on. Like, well, you know, you've been seeing this guy around the office so long, and you finally just probably got to know him. There was probably a mutual respect there. I thought Dana forgave Peter a little quickly.
She hearted him.
Like, they really went pretty quick into, okay, we're back together, and you are a good person and a good man. And Oscar's dad is a deadbeat. That kid is 9 months old. Where is he?
In another country.
No. You don't go to another country. You be a father to your son. All right, that's shenanigans. Mm-hmm. That guy's a punk.
Well, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why she fell for Peter again so quickly, because he was, putting in the time and being
I'm presuming
eternal.
Oscar's dad was her ex-husband, right? So he got divorced. Well, they had this infant son. Shenanigans.
Or did they never get married? Did they? Oh my god.
She mentioned that she
mentioned divorced. Yeah.
She did something like, we lost contact after I got married. She said it when she was talking to Egon when he was studying the kids, or the kid with the puppy, and then the All right. So we're getting to that time. Jeff, I'll start with you. What was your favorite part of this movie?
Look, I don't want to steal Jen's, but really I only have one that I would, definitely say is my favorite. I really do like the, and it's so strange to think that Venkman isn't even in this scene, but that's just the sort of movie this is. I really do like the three, Ray, Egon, and Winston down in the pneumatic transit line bit. Mm-hmm. It's arguably the scariest part in the movie. It's got some funny lines in it, and just I just like that scene start to finish. It's the only scene I can think of that I like. Like there's bits and pieces that I like. That's the one scene that I kind of like as it stands, start to finish. So that's for me. That's definitely the highlight. And it feels like okay, they're finally doing some ghost, some investigating. It feels like the plot's actually going somewhere at that point too, which is also good.
All right. So I'll go next. I think my favorite scene, and Beardman, I'm really stretching because there is not a lot of this movie that I actually can go back and look at and think fondly about. But I think probably my favorite scene is when they're showing off the slime to Peter. And they make the toaster dance and all this other stuff and talk about all the positive. And he's like, "Have you slept with it?" And there's this look, and he's like, "It's always the quiet ones."
Always quiet ones.
This is what you do in your spare time.
Yeah, that's about a scene that I think this is at least funny. This could have come out of the first movie.
It could have, yeah. It was nice.
Yeah. So Jen, we're gonna end on a positive note. What was your favorite part of this movie?
It's really tough. I gotta mention two real quick.
Sure.
My two favorites are the courtroom scene, ending with that epic return, and then her answering the phone, going, "Yes, we're back," and what Jeff said. I think again that's just so memorable from my childhood. The whole scene of them.
No, I can understand it. I would be right with you on the courtroom scene if it wasn't for the fact that it's heavily implied that Winston left the room scared.
That he's a little bitch.
Yeah.
It does take some enjoyment out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So, scores. Jen, we'll start with you. What would you score this movie if you had to give it a score?
5 Vigos out of 5.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow. I don't know if you could be on any
I love it. I'm sorry. I love it.
Oh, okay. All right. Jeff.
Out of 5?
Out of whatever. These scores don't mean anything. You know that.
All right. Well, I'll just stick with out of 5, even though this isn't going to make it. I have a backup just in case if you don't like the first one. I'm going to give it 2 Scoleri Brothers out of 5.
2 Scoleri Brothers.
2.
2. Okay. I will give it 1 free-floating, full torso, vaporous apparition out of 5.
No.
I added vaporous.
That hurt.
Vaporous.
Because I wanted to drive the point home.
You could have just said a half.
No, I don't do halves. The halves are dumb. Because then you got to say, what's the difference between 3.5 and a 3? And again, the scores don't matter. Right. I could have said anything. I could have said 1 out of 100. But I just give it a 1 out of whatever. So that was Hero Talk. That was Ghostbusters 2. I want to say thanks to Baron, Fang, and Dark Princess for joining us. You can catch us on Enthusiacs.com, on YouTube on Enthusiacs, and where else are we? At Twitter, @Enthusiacs. Thanks for joining us for Hero Talk, and good night.